Greetings! This is Griff Ruby with the next part of my Isaac Asimov short stories. The next short story to appear after the Catch That Rabbit was another Foundation installment, which now finally gets the cover of Astounding for the third time that he got the cover of Astounding. First being with Nightfall, and the second being with Bridle and Saddle, and now after waiting over 2 years for another Foundation segment, and this was a good one, a real doozy. It made the cover for the third time. So, it's titled The Big and the Little, a Foundation story by Isaac Asimov. So, you can actually see somebody's holding this little tiny generator the size of a walnut that's got nuclear power in it, or atomic power as they would have said then, and can power enough to make a personal shield to protect a person wearing this thing from basically blaster or any other energy attack. So, and somebody's dangling it in front of somebody else like it, and here this is. That happens at a point in the story, so it's kind of cool. You get a very direct part of the story. So, he's mentioned headed off first thing in the table of contents. Again, as you can see, there are no descriptions, just The Big and the Little by Isaac Asimov, page 7. And then we get to the actual page itself, and there's a little piece, let's see here, there's a piece of artwork. This is Onem, let's see, this is Hober Mallow meeting up with somebody named Onum. There's Onum and Dusum. 1 and 2, I guess. Onum, oh gosh, the name just got on my brain. But at any rate, that's him meeting up with them, and he's got the shield, and the person's very impressed with that. He knows that's obviously the magicians that sometimes they talk about from the outer rims of the galaxy. One of those people has showed up. And we have another shot here. We have Hober Mallow and one of his crew members, or maybe Twir. They've landed at a spaceport on the planet of Corel, and they're kind of waiting to come out, waiting for the right time to come out. And then we have another piece of work. This is the one where the priest is pronouncing curses on everybody because they're going to hand him over to the Corellians. Okay. And this is actually the logo of the spaceship and sun of the Empire, as interpreted by whatever artist they have there at Astounding Science Fiction. The spaceship and sun. The sun is all these rays. I know it looks more like an instrument panel or something, but that's what it really is. And the spaceship is that cigar thing. So, well, who knew what a spaceship would look like? And you never know what they may look like 50,000 years in the future anyway. Then there's the part where Hober Mallow is demonstrating the value of his shield to this technician, where the technician works the great big atomic power generators of, I think, Savannah. And he just says, go ahead and shoot me. And, if you kill me, you can just say I was trying to, trick you and you caught me, and that would be perfectly fair. But if not, well, if you let me have what I want, you can have this shield. So that impressed the technician. So, and then here's kind of a close-up of the hand of that cursing priest. It turns out with a little ultraviolet light, the letters KSP light up. That's not a real real Terminus priest. It's Corellian secret police. So there was no real danger. So that's kind of cool. So you have a lot of good pictures in this, and it's a big story because this is where, as originally written, we're moving up from the world of the expansion or control through the religion that was so important in Bridle and Saddle. But once they did that, it was like they couldn't get much of anything past the original 4 kingdoms. So what ended up happening was new expansion had to go with trade, and the trade had to be without the religion. So it's a whole sudden thing. Now, there's a few differences between how this is in this book, how this magazine has it, the original release, versus how it would show up in the first volume of Foundation as the Merchant Princes. For one thing, the Merchant Princes will come after another story that hasn't come out yet, and actually at this point comes later in the sequence. So what we got is a number of changes to reflect that. One of the biggest changes is we've added the quote from the Encyclopedia Galactica. So originally it just had a little, well, let's see, first there's the publisher's squib. I'll just read the squib. And that one reads, "The Empire was dying, but even a dying colossus is a terrible enemy. The Foundation was little and had only little things, kitchen knives of atomic flame, against the stupendous ancient generators of the Empire." So, in a way, this is the Foundation's first meeting with the Empire, but only in a very indirect, tangential way. Because you have this one planet that still belongs to the Empire. The Empire sent this Viceroy to come in and take over. The Viceroy, at first the people were glad, okay, this is fine. He's from the Empire. He's official. This is great. We all give our fealty to the Empire. The guy was really cruel and disgusting and really oppressed the planet and so forth. But he has a daughter that married some other who knows who out in these edge of the galaxy hinterland. In point of fact, she married the Commodore of a planet called Corel. And Corel is interested in what the Foundation can sell from the trading standpoint, but they don't want to have to deal with the Foundation religion. So Hober Mallow has to find a new way to continue expanding the Foundation's influence, now exclusively on trade. So where originally it started with a short quote from Essays on History by Ligurn Vier, where it says, 3 dynasties molded the beginning. The Encyclopedists, that's what we had in the Foundation, the first one published, titled Foundation. The Mayors, that's what we heard about in Bridle and Saddle. And the Traders, which is what we have here in this third Foundation story. Okay, so that, of course, was replaced by Traders. The psychohistoric inevitability, economic control of the Foundation grew. The traders grew rich, and with riches came power. It is sometimes forgotten that Hober Mallow began life as an ordinary trader. It is never forgotten that he ended it as the first of the merchant princes. Okay. So, there's numerous changes as we go through. Some of them are rather small. I skip over the smallest here. Some of these I kind of wonder why they were made. Originally, is a place that says, when the Foundation was first established, Hari Seldon worked out the historical probabilities that faced us. It is replaced with, we know that Hari Seldon worked out the historical probabilities of the future. Okay. Now, here's kind of a cool thing. We know by Seldon's own sonal records left us in the time vaults that these years will be spotted with definite crisis. Those sonal records being the recordings that we had seen at the end of each of the first 2 Foundation installments published. This is replaced with, and we know that in the interval we will face certain definite crises. Okay. Now, there's a neat detail. Asimov has tried to tie in the previous stories in a way that he kind of gives a quick thumbnail sketch of what happened, but he builds it into the story itself, the narrative of the story itself, which I think is kind of cool how he does this. So there's one guy who's going along with Hober Mallow on this whole trip named Jaim Twer doesn't seem to know what a selling crisis is. And Homer Mallow says, "What do you mean you don't know what a selling price is? Don't you remember it was this and that?" And he's described about selling prices that we will learn about in the foundation and bridle and saddle segments of the story. So he kind of recounts very briefly the events of those. And then Twer comes back with, "Well, original." He says, "Of course," Twer shrugged. "I should have remembered. But I've been out of school a long time, longer than you." Replaced with Twer shrugged. "I suppose this was mentioned in school, but I've been out of school a long time, longer than you." Well, okay, sort of. Now let's see here. There's a very tiny one-letter change when they landed at the spaceport. Where was it located? When originally published, this was in a Sleepy Farm section. Farm, okay? Like it's out in the farm, out in the boonies. So I guess if a spaceship explodes or crashes near the spaceport, it'll land on a farm and, probably hurt some crops and, very small chance of a farmer, but basically not a populated area. It makes sense. For some reason, in all future printings of every sort, it goes from farm section to a Sleepy Far section. I guess it's just kind of another way of saying boonies, but I think the other way is a little more clear. Now, here's the thing. It seems when you read it in the Foundation book, how could this story come before the part that appears, the part that involves Ascone? And here's what happens. This is one of the most crucial changes in the text in going from this original publication to the one in the Foundation. And the original read like this. "So, it has always been in effect. What your people ask is complete freedom of missionary effort, the establishment of religious schools, autonomous rights for all officers of the religion. Oh no, oh no, the dignity of an independent people could never suffer it." "Such has never been my suggestion," interposed Mallow. This is Mallow talking to the Commodore of the Corel planet. So, needless to say, in the book that got changed to, "So, it has always been in effect. Surely you remember the case of Ascone 20 years ago. First, they were sold some of your goods, and then your people asked for complete freedom of missionary effort in order that the goods might be run properly, that temples of health be set up. There was then the establishment of the religious schools, autonomous rights for all officers of the religion, and with what result? Ascone is now an integral member of the Foundation's system, and the Grand Master cannot call his underwear his own. Oh no, the dignity of an independent people could never suffer it. And then none of what you speak of is at all what I suggest," interposed Mallow. So you see, from before it was just, "This is what you guys have always done," to, "Yeah, look what you did to Ascone." Well, see, as this is written, Ascone doesn't exist yet, you see, as a story. Again, the new one adds about some experts. "This will work for you without priestly help." Mallow is reassuring him again. Then there's an odd little description, I guess, to clarify things when he's able to sell these. Well, I mentioned how you had this atomic shield that's powered by something the size of a walnut. You could also have an extraordinary glow field that could be like a dress. That's rather impressive to see. "And oh, how the dowagers will fight for them. I'll keep the supply small and let them bid." Well, originally it's just, "Galaxy, how the dowagers will fight for them. I'll let them bid." Or, said Mallow, working further, and goes on about other things. Gets replaced with, "Galaxy, how they would fight for them. I'll keep the supply small and let them bid. Of course, it wouldn't do to let them know that I personally," now said, "we can explain the workings of dummy corporations if you like." Then working further, and it goes on. So just to explain a little bit more, I guess. Okay. Alright, so a very simple, everybody's happy gets replaced with, and mind you, none of it will require priestly supervision. Everybody will be happy. And then again later on, none of your religion, not a word of religion. And in the new one, none of your religion. Don't think that all this is an entering wedge for the missionaries. Now it's interesting. They introduced the word wedge here, where it's pulled out of the title for the first one. Okay. Now there's a cool scene where he takes these two copper tubes and he melds them together, and it's so smoothly, cleanly contacted that the copper literally joins up like an instant weld. And he points this thing out. Johanneston blocks at a stroke, which is kind of cool. For some reason, that dropped out. Okay. All right. Now let's see here. Well, people used to talk about this side of Vega itself. Well, I guess Vega was like a big commercial center originally as conceived, but we kind of moved out of even naming Vega anymore. So instead we're saying, well, this side is the biggest thing this side of Trantor itself. So let's see here. Okay, not another world had accepted the religions. Gets changed to scarcely another world, because there was a scone now. Okay. Or once again, the mention of a secular monarch, which gets replaced with secular monarchs, and if that wasn't enough, the case of Escone 2 decades back makes it plain enough. See, again, we've introduced a bit about Escone. So the Foundation hasn't made a single conquest since the original Four Kingdoms, and changing which has hardly made a single conquest because there was Escone now. So okay, something new got added here. That was for the inhabitants of Terminus itself. The men of the outer planets could hear only censored versions that would suit the requirements of religion. They would hear nothing of Selden prices, but there would be further strokes they would not miss. So this is talking about how when there's the trial, because later on Hober Mallow is on trial, he handed this priest over to the people of his world, and James Twr turns out to have been trained as a priest, which is the one category of training one can receive on Terminus wherein they don't learn about the Selden crisis. And that's what he had detected when James Twr didn't seem to know about it. He says, well, I was in school a long time ago and forgot all about it, kind of approach. So that kind of changes that. So now this is kind of interesting. The way they heard the outer world would hear about it, it excludes all mention in Selden and his planet history. Gets refined a little to excludes mention of the planned history of Selden and deals only with the man himself as a semi-mythical wizard. So it's kind of vaguely known there's a guy that's Selden who's responsible for this manifest destiny of the Foundation, but all the details about the Selden crisis and cycle history, no, not even that, let alone those real details of the cycle history, not only the second Foundation, but that hasn't been brought in at all yet. Okay. Okay. A scene sprang that was in like 3D, and then they describe it as a holographic scene. That's okay. No, that just came later. Okay, let's see here. All right. The prosecution has anticipated that I would justify my actions by saying, legally, I had no obligation to protect this priest. But either by law nor by custom was I obliged. And so he says, the prosecution has anticipated this justification of my actions and has replied to it with their mutterings of the Foundation's honor and the necessity of upholding our dignity in order to maintain our ascendancy. That and various other unchewable phrases, and it goes on. It's changed to, in the modern one, the prosecution has anticipated this justification of my actions. They have expected me to explain that the safety of my ship, my crew, my mission itself were at stake, and could not be sacrificed for one man when that man would, in any case, have been destroyed, with us or without us. They reply by muttering about the Foundation's honor and the necessity of upholding our dignity in order to maintain our ascendancy. So, but in the first admiral, we just guessed what KSB stands for now. We've added Jord Parma knew his priestly lingo well and did his job magnificently. Where he had learned it and how, I cannot say, but KSP stands for Corellian Secret Police, Jord Parma being the name given by this priest they picked up at Corel. So, let's see here. But basically, there's several parts. First, he has to deal with Corel, selling them what they're going to do, and without the religion of the that the Four Kingdoms were given. So Corel agrees to this, and that's fine. But the wife of Corel came from Siwenna, which strictly speaking was still under the Empire's control. So then Hobermallow goes to Siwenna, meets up with Onan Bar, and who's hospitable and helps him kind of know what to do and how to find his way into a nuclear reactor and meet up with a technician and so forth. So, and it turns out that, like I said, the wife of the Commodore is actually the daughter of this viceroy who had taken over Siwenna as Emperor's viceroy. Okay. So what was he going to? So what was that? Was the first? That was the next part. It's this kind of middle phase where they're looking around Siwenna and seeing what happened there. And even though they've got these giant nuclear power reactors or atomic power reactors, the guy who's responsible for one of them wouldn't know what to do if anything actually broke. So I'm not quite sure what good he is if he doesn't know what to do if even just something broke. So that's what he needed to see and find out. So this was the thing. The Empire had these giant atomic generators to protect a ship or even the whole planet. You know, not these little small scale things that could just protect a single man. So that was kind of cool. But then comes the third phase. He now comes back to the home planet of Terminus. He has the trial where he gets himself exonerated from any wrongdoing because that priest who returned to Corel wasn't really even a priest in the first place anyway, because he was really a Corellian secret police. So then, having had the trial, he's able to become the mayor of Terminus. And as mayor, well, now Corel still wants to go to war. And they're even getting some warships from the Empire. And it's so tempting to go to war against them. But that's what they mustn't do. So originally, it just was pretty straightforward, rather terse. You know, what are they going to do? 100% of nothing. But it gets changed with a little additional explanatory material. 100% of nothing, and that is the secret of this crisis. Do not fight back with any war or weapon or anything. You just stop selling them all the little widgets and gadgets that they like until they start finding their factories don't work and all the little things that people bought for the kitchen and the home don't work. And you want more of these things. You have to end it. You want more of these things. You have to stop fighting the war against the Foundation. And so, in effect, the Foundation wins without really fighting a normal war, which keeps them inconspicuous from the standpoint of the Empire. It's not as interesting reading somehow, but actually it's very important. They are staying out of the Empire's visibility just yet. It's not time to confront the Empire directly. And if they went to war with Corel would be able to get a whole lot more ships, and they'd come in, and the Empire would just cream the heck out of them. So they have to just basically fight a trade war, is what it is. So, which in 1944, that was not even heard of yet. So actually, that's pretty cool that he invented the concept of a trade war. Okay. So, let's see, what else here? How would you get us out? In Hardin's time, when conquest by missionary was new and radical, men like yourself opposed it. Now it is tried, tested, hollowed, everything a Duran Sut would find well. But tell me, how would you get us out of the situation? So Duran Sut is somebody who's insisting, no, you have to take the religion everywhere because that worked in the Four Kingdoms, and that's how we have to do all our trade everywhere. And, well, Duran Sut's losing that campaign. So, well then, said Nalo wearily, let us, gets replaced with, it will become so, said Nalo. Consider that until now the power of trade has been underestimated. It has been thought that it took a priesthood under our control to make it a powerful weapon. That is not so, and this is my contribution to the galactic situation. Trade without priests. Trade alone. It is strong enough. Let us, forward with that. So, then how much of a disaster is it? Well, they had brought all these great devices that could really do industrial miracles for the people on Corel. But now suddenly those machines are not being supported, or whatever, by the Foundation. So what can they do? Yeah, the factories used to make all these things before, but they tore all that stuff out to make room for the new stuff. Now all of a sudden, without counting the cost of reconversion, even if you leave out of consideration the cost of reconversion to the original nuclear or atomic state. So, well, is Hober Mallow still in danger? Well, he's got all the trading under his control. But what gets added for the book is that I couldn't squeeze to nothing if such attempt revolutionary propaganda. Where his propaganda succeeds, or even looks as though it might succeed, I will make certain that prosperity dies. Where it fails, prosperity will continue, because my factories will remain fully staffed. Originally they mentioned traders and money barons, which got changed to traders and merchant princes, because in the book there'll be one about traders and one about merchant princes. That makes sense. So, what's going to happen next? There'll be more Selden crises. What are you going to do about those? And Hober Mallow's just, well, let my successors solve those. I've solved this. It's not my problem. Okay, when money and power become as dead a force as religion, and now let my successors solve those new problems, as I have solved the one of today. And then finally, we originally ended with one last closing quote from Le Gurnevier's Essays on History. And so it says, after 3 years of war, which was no war, the Corellian Republic surrendered unconditionally. Pretty cool. Very straightforward. But that gets replaced with a book with an Encyclopedia Galactica quote. And so, after 3 years of a war which was certainly the most unfought war on record, the Republic of Corel surrendered unconditionally, and Hober Mallow took his place next to Hari Seldon and Salvor Hardin in the hearts of the people of the Foundation. So, well, I've managed to cover both the story and those things that changed in going from the original publication to the version that appeared in the book and ever since. So, I think that's covered it all. It is, of course, an awesome story, even just as a standalone, to say nothing of what it is as a stage of the first volume of Foundation. A strong climax, which is why that book was ended with that. But we'll talk about that some more in the next segment. Thanks for listening.